in terms of that advertising, we heard before from Catherine and the discussion that happened afterwards there, this whole idea of protection versus non-protection. So if you're talking about advertising as one of the key ways in which you're going to monetize Facebook, is there an issue there in terms of, you know, the user-created content and advertisers? What are you finding are their reactions, brands' reactions to that today?
Well, I think there's two things. So to the point earlier, I think it was protecting the copyright of content and protecting some of the premium content. Facebook is content agnostic. I mean, we've created a template that allows users to go in and to really program their own environment and program their own page. So for the most part, what happens on our site isn't that people are taking other people's content and using Facebook to distribute it. What they're doing is they're raising their hand around the programming that they're most passionate about. So it creates an amazing opportunity for premium content. To the marketers who are either saying right now, you know what, I'm going to sit this out because I fear the fact that my brand is going to be next to craziness on the site. Two things I would say is that Facebook has created an environment that it's really it's your authentic personality, and you're surrounding yourself with people that you know really well. So the likelihood of you acting out of character in this environment is much lower because of the fact you're connecting to people you already know. The other thing I would say is I was sitting on a round table in New York about 6 weeks ago or so, and a few of you were there at that round table, and as the comments were going around the room, one of the people said, you know, we as a company have decided to sit out of social media. We've decided to sit this one out. We're not doing social networking. And you know, the microphone came to me, and I said, well, you know, there are 700 groups on Facebook about your brand. So this isn't a place that you as a brand can decide to sit out of. It's certainly a segment of the marketplace that you as a brand can choose to ignore. But one of the things that I would suggest is that if you are running a brand or you're running several brands, go on Facebook, go on the social media sites, do a search for your brand, and find out what's going on. I mean, find out what's happening about your brand on the site. What we offer, what my team offers in the consultative process, is to sit down and talk to you more about how to create more of an impact with the consumers that are already raising their hand about your brand. The other thing I would say is that for those of you who are worried about social media and about people slapping your brand around, last year, it was almost a year ago right now on Earth Day, Starbucks ran a campaign on Facebook, which was, you know, Starbucks is all about the environment and Earth. Let's celebrate Earth Day together. And you know, the passion around the brand was amazing. This one person came on and made a comment on Starbucks' wall, and it said, "I'm going to jump into my Ford F-150 pickup truck and drive 175 miles to a Starbucks and throw my chainsaw in the back and go cut down trees." And this long diatribe about how they were going to, and to a degree, making fun of the relationship that Starbucks had created with their passionate followers. One of the things you need to know is that when somebody fans your brand or joins a group about your brand or is connected to your brand in a social media site, for the most part, they connect to you because they love you and they really care about you and they're passionate supporters of yours. So what happened in the Starbucks example is that one person came in, wasted the group's time, and they ended up having about 25 very passionate Starbucks consumers and passionate Starbucks followers say, you know, what are you doing here? Starbucks is this, Starbucks is that. And they went through, and in defending the Starbucks brand, these are people who are just consumers that you guys are trying to reach every day. But because of the fact that they had taken the time and made the commitment to connect to that brand on a social media site, the likelihood of them protecting your brand in that environment is very likely.
So I think it's a really interesting point about the whole idea, you know, and you do hear that from brands a lot, the idea that they kind of believe they can somehow stay out of social media. I just think that's kind of interesting. What other mistakes do you see from brands in terms of, you know, if you're giving people here advice in terms of how you should be playing in social media generally, and especially in Facebook, what are the other kind of classic errors that you see?
I mean, the most obvious one is slapping the same creative up that you run all over the internet on Facebook. I mean, that's one where, you know, I think most of the testing that's been done about click-through rates on our banners and such have been done by putting Lower My Bills ads all over Facebook and trying to figure out what the click-through rate of those are going to be. But the advice would be is don't take the same creative you run all over the internet and try to run it on Facebook, because there's a little bit of a self-fulfilling prophecy in how something like that will succeed. The other thing that I would suggest is that all of our big campaigns with our closest advertisers, even those that we work really closely with in the planning process and such, aren't always the best in the world. I mean, we've fallen on our face with a couple of pretty major brands in our first go with some of these brands. One of the commitments and one of the things we look for is a commitment beyond the first campaign, because there's a lot that we learn together about how a brand can succeed within this environment. There's a lot the brand can find out as well. So it's one of those things that we work really closely.
So basically, because you're talking about the interaction between them and the people, you don't know until they start interacting.
Yeah, and we've seen a couple of examples of that we collectively have made mistakes in trying to figure that out. It's one of the things, though, you learn pretty quickly in this environment, because consumers, especially in this demographic, are pretty generous with their opinions and pretty willing to help in many ways.
We've only got a couple of minutes. I just want to quickly come, it was my next question, but it's one of the questions from the audience as well, was which are the big advertisers and who's doing it well?
Well, as most of you know, I don't have permission to talk about any of the things that we do together, but I would just say that some examples of companies that have learned and done it right. Our relationship with Procter & Gamble's Crest White Strips through MediaVest went all the way to the point where packaging was changed on the product based on feedback that came from Facebook users. Paramount recently released a movie that they created an application that they shared all over online, where you can grab the widget and put it on your page across all social media sites. I thought that was brilliant. And then the one that we do have permission to talk about in more detail is it's a credit services product from JP Morgan Chase. And what JP Morgan Chase did was they ran a campaign on Facebook for a couple of months asking consumers what they wanted in a credit card product. And it was very specifically targeted to the 18 to 24-year-old audience. What they found is that consumers of that age believe that points are important, but they didn't feel like they could collect enough points on their own to make a meaningful purchase. So what they asked Chase for is the ability to be able to share and pool points and gift points from their credit card with their friends. And what they found is the take rate and also the influence that consumers had on each other to get their friends to sign up for that credit card was amazing. The other thing that they found, which I think is a really, really interesting takeaway from this, is that 60% or so of the points that were spent on donations to charitable organizations. So it was an opportunity for cause. Social media is an amazing opportunity for you to leverage or not leverage, but to raise awareness of the causes that you're passionate about. But what Chase did really well was they asked a lot of questions, and they not only asked the questions, but also listened to the response of the market.
Let's do a quick fire on a couple of these.
Okay.
Why does Facebook have a better future than MySpace?
I think one of the key ways we look at this, and we really don't compare ourselves to the other social media sites all that much, but I think one of the key things is that the internet was founded on anonymity. If you look back in the mid-90s when you were all convinced to get your first email address, you were convinced because it was an anonymous environment. It was one that it was pretty low friction, you weren't making a huge commitment, and your email address was soccermom4784. The new thing for the 18 to 34-year-old audience especially, around authenticity scares the hell out of us older people. But for the people that have been brought up with a device in both hands and 3 in their pocket, is an environment where they're looking to connect with people that they already know. Facebook's not a place to hook up. Facebook's not a place to meet other people. Facebook's a place where you connect with people you already know, you share photos with people you already know, and it's an environment that we believe, because of the authenticity of the site, it has a long-term value, longer-term opportunity, and we're convinced also that marketers' brands are safer in environments where authenticity helps drive the social norms that exist on the site.
What are your annual sales? How much of your revenue comes through Microsoft? Shall I just run through all these questions?
Yeah, keep going. You're doing great.
That you won't answer, or do you want to
Hold
stop
on,
me?
wait.
What impact has the iPhone had?
So we acquired a company not too long ago. The guys who developed Firefox, it was a couple of partners that created a company called Parakeet. And we bought their company because of the talent that existed there. And one of the founders of Firefox came over, and we had just launched our platform, and he had just seen the first iPhone. So over a weekend, he wrote an application for the iPhone that has become the industry standard for Apple. And iPhone has, as far as distribution on iPhone, our interface on iPhone, for those of you who have it, it's pretty exceptional. It's something that we're figuring out on a regular basis. But just like content, we're device agnostic as well. I mean, we love the fact that people are looking at Facebook on their iPhone. We think that the connectedness to your mobile device will keep you just as connected when you're going back and making some decisions and uploading content along the way. But you'll continue to see opportunities for the immediate upload of photos through all devices around the world. I think iPhone is just a really good example of somebody who did it right.
And there's one last question, because it was on here. It was also my last question. What's the biggest threat to Facebook that's coming down the pipe right now?
I think the biggest threat in the world is that, if for some reason we for a minute take our eye off of the user, if we for a minute look at the user as being anything other than the center of the universe, I think that would be the biggest threat. I mean, we know that there are other companies that'll come along. We know that we have a lot of decisions to make, and hopefully we'll collectively make a lot on the monetization side together. But I think it's just really important that we iterate, we innovate. The reason people leave websites is because they get bored with them, or that there's another website that innovates in a different way. And because we have 20,000 applications, and because we're creating a better platform every day for our developers to develop, we hope that these things become more than just something that fills up people's profile space. We hope that there's more utility. We hope there's more productivity. And from what we're seeing now that users are voting with real estate on their profiles for applications, what we're seeing is more and more meaningful applications are being rewarded because it's kind of users voting with the real estate of their profile. So we're hopeful that the next 5,000 applications learn from the first 20,000, and that there's more and more utility and more productivity that comes along with it. But that's the most important thing that we could do.
Thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, Mike Murphy.
Thank you.